I watch Auburn play 7 or 8 times a year. I watch all the big games, most of the games in the SEC and the big non-conference game. Of course, I'll lock in on Penn State, so I watch, a program again like Auburn play 7 or 8 times a year. I get fed to me that the offensive line's been pretty bad. Some people tell me I've got a photographic memory, but I'm not remembering what the Auburn offensive line did by the games that I watched against Alabama, Texas A&M on down the line. But I will say, and you guys are giving me a different narrative, which is great to hear, that the play calling could have been better and the quarterback could have made better decisions to get the ball out of his hand on time and not be running around from sideline to sideline. That would make the offensive line look a little bit better. But I will say this, what for me would be a little concerning as an Auburn fan looking at the offensive line situation is that I think we can agree it wasn't dominant. No. And that you bring in two players in the 2021 class. One of them is the 34th rated guard, and the other is the 50th rated tackle. So you didn't really fortify it with like top level guys in the offensive front.
Right. Yeah. No, we haven't talked a ton about offensive line. Definitely a point of concern, specifically at the tackle position. We've been doing a lot of, over the last few years, we've gotten a lot of guards in, but we haven't gotten a lot of tackles. And so when you're talking about the speed rushers on the edge that you're going to see consistently in these top level programs, you're going to need someone who can handle that sort of thing. That has been an issue for us. And we don't really have a true center. Like the center that we currently have is playing out of position. He's really a guard that's playing center. So the offensive line by no means is solidified. They're average, right? They're not, dominant, mauling. He brought the Texas A&M example of, how Jimbo Fisher was able to utilize that run game and short passing game to really help Kellen Mond. A lot of that was anchored by a really great offensive line at Texas A&M. Auburn has not had that over the last couple of years. Much better in run blocking scenarios than pass blocking, but hopefully we can continue to prove with a little more experience. Last year, a ton of inexperience. I think we started maybe 3 games. I can go back and check that, where it was the same offensive line unit for the entirety of those 3 games. There just was not a lot of consistency. And again, you're going to hear me talk about consistency. Wasn't a ton of consistency when it comes to the offensive line of who was lining up snap to snap, be it injuries or poor performance. That was just, it is what it is. A lot of it was injuries. So hopefully we can get some more consistency up there and guys can start to gel into some spaces. Definitely we'll be looking forward to seeing how that performs during the A-Day game.
Yeah, listen, we under-recruited offensive line these last few years. I mean, not a single freshman offensive lineman signed over the last few years. And, I'm not so much concerned about where the guys we got are rated, more so than I'm concerned about how we develop who we have. It's not all about stars, right? I think that you get a guy, they're going to repurpose some guys. That's something we haven't seen a ton over the last few years. That was a staple in early Auburn teams in the early 2000s, where they would take a guy like Ben Grubbs, who played defense in high school. And, the coaches say, you're going to make a lot of money at the next level if you move to offensive line. He played 9 years in the NFL as a tackle, made a lot of money doing that, right? So recruiting hasn't really been a problem. So I think they have talent, but offensive line has left a lot to be desired. So while I do think they took a lot of unnecessary heat in 2020, they weren't great. They didn't play great, and there's equal blame to go around there, right? Like, there is the coaching. Certainly, we made a coaching change. I know we'll talk about that, but play calling just didn't help them in pass pro, right? These plays were slow developing. We went back and we watched the film, and it just didn't. The better quarterbacks in our league had the ball out of their hands in under 2.5 seconds. So their lines didn't have to block much longer than that. Bo Nix had the ball out of his hands in 2.87 seconds on average, right? So it's not as if there was no time to find somebody. It's just that there was nobody to throw to. So it was either poorly run routes or poorly designed plays. And they've got to change. Harsin and Bobo, job number one is that they're going to have to scheme around our deficiencies better than we have before. If offensive line is one of them, it's going to require us to get the ball out of the QB's hands and design some plays that help take the pressure off these guys so that defenses can not just pin their ears back and come out and bum rush them. to stop this offense. We saw Florida do it with Trask last year. Their offensive line wasn't great, and they had no running game. And he was Heisman level good. So you just have to scheme better. So that's what I'm hoping that they'll do for this offensive line.